Hi guys, in this lecture we will be talking about ancient Mesopotamia, which is one of the first river valley civilizations discovered by archaeologists. Today we will identify causes and effects of the development of the river valley civilizations. We will also identify characteristics of theocracies in early civilizations and identify the characteristics of a theocracy. We will also identify the impact of the Hammurabi Code and describe the role of women, children, and families. And finally, we will identify the origin diffusion of major ideas in math, science, and technology that developed in Mesopotamia. By the time that we are done with this lesson, you will have interpreted the code of Hammurabi by participating in a role-play activity in class. The first thing we have here is a map that you should have a copy of. Make sure that you label all of the rivers that are assigned to these civilizations. The one that we're starting with is Mesopotamia, which is located here, and you want to label the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. You will also need to label the Nile for the ancient Egypt. You will also label the Indus for the Indus Valley civilization, and you will label the Yellow River for the Chinese civilization. Alright, so first let's look at the geography of Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is a word that means land between two rivers, and that is because it is located between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. It's part of what we call the Fertile Crescent, and it's called the Fertile Crescent because of its crescent shape. If you notice, it's shaped like a crescent roll or a crescent moon. This would be modern-day Iraq. Okay, the civilization developed in this area because it was easy to get irrigation from the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and there was very fertile soil in that valley. That resulted in the development of permanent settlements in this area, and of course, with the increase of the supply of food, they were also able to obtain a surplus of food, which means they had extra food. The religion in Mesopotamian civilizations was polytheistic. That means that they believe in many gods. There were as many as 2,000 different gods that these people believed in, and these gods were actually very capricious and mean according to the people who believed in them. And so they spent a lot of time trying to make their gods happy, and this is because the region in which the civilization developed was prone to droughts or to attacks from neighboring civilizations, and people turned to religion for answers. And so they thought that if they experienced some sort of hardship, it must be because the gods were angry. So again, they spent a lot of time giving sacrifices or praying or participating in other religious ceremonies. As far as their achievements are concerned, let's look at their cities and also some of their architecture. These were the first people to build cities anywhere in the world. Their buildings were made from mud, bricks, and crushed reeds, and eventually the cities grew bigger and bigger, and so they built walls around the cities to keep them safe. In the center of all of the cities, there always was a ziggurat, which is a religious temple, and that is where they practiced their religious ceremonies. A group of people who settled in this area, the Sumerians, they're the ones who made great advances in technology. They invented the wheel and the sailboat, which are still quite useful today. They also developed irrigation, and they used bronze and copper tools for the first time. We also know that they developed a 12-month calendar similar to what we have today. The Babylonians later developed a number system that's based on 60, which is actually where we derive the concept of seconds and minutes that we use today. Cuneiform was also developed by Babylonians, and that is the earliest known form of writing that we have ever discovered. It was a set of symbols that was carved into clay tablets, and as far as we know, that's the earliest we ever saw any kind of writing from a civilization. The Phoenicians were another group from Mesopotamia who developed a great technology. They were excellent sailors, so they improved on the sailboat, and they also developed the first alphabet. And actually, our alphabet is derived from the Phoenicians. If you think the word phonics sounds familiar, that is because it comes from this civilization. As far as their politics, they have what we call a theocracy, and that is a government where the leaders follow religious rules, or they're looked as religious leaders as well as political leaders. The rulers in this civilization were often priests. They were the most important people in the civilization, and their cities were divided into what they called city-states. Places like Uruk and Ur and Babylon, they all had their own ruler. They all worshipped their own gods, and they had their own army, so they kind of functioned like independent countries. There was a ruler by the name of Hammurabi who developed what we know as the earliest written law code. He sat down and thought up of scenarios that people would come into conflict with often, and he wrote down the rules for his society and also punishments or judgments for his society. It covered most of the daily occurrences that he encountered, and although when you see them in practice, because we're going to do a little role play activity on these, they might seem a little archaic. For the first time, there was actually a set of rules and consequences that were written down, and that's why they're significant. Now let's look at their economy. The fact that these civilizations ended up with free time led to specialized jobs. So people could study a particular skill and become good at that particular skill. So we get to see people who only focus on farming or herding or fishing. We also see the development of masons and potters. They're the ones who make homes or storage for the extra food. And then we even see merchants. Because they have all this extra food, now they can trade this food with other people, and so they're going to venture out and they're going to trade food, clothing, jewelry, wine, and other goods. And they didn't have a system of money, but they used barley and other precious metals for their system of money. We call that barter. And lastly, we'll look at their social structure. This society is divided into 4 social classes. The priests, of course, are at the top. They're the rulers. They're the most important. And then women are a special class. They're not equal to men. Their role in this society is to be responsible for the children, and they also crush the grain and prepare it for their bread and their food. Wealthy women, though, had a few more rights than lower classes. They were able to go to the marketplace, they could run a business, and they could even obtain divorces, but those rights were only reserved for people, for women in those upper classes. Alright, and that brings us to journal entry number 3. After learning about the Code of Hammurabi, do you think that these laws were biased? That means, do you think that they're prejudiced against certain groups? Make sure that you use at least 2 examples from the code to support your answer, and also make sure that you answer in 5 to 6 sentences in order for the journal to be complete. All right, thanks for watching.